once you're set. Okay, good. You can proceed, Anna.
Okay. All right, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to another insightful session of the Echoes of Africanism podcast. So we had previous sessions, which was very, very insightful. The one we had last was on Saturday, hosted by Brittany, and we featured Bravin Onditi and Emmanuel Kilo. So they presented their research on decoding the future, Africa's Parliament, the 4 IRs, and the AI revolution. So their conversation highlighted the urgent need for African legislatures to move from being passive spectators to technological change to becoming proactive architects of our digital destiny by bridging governance gaps and enhancing digital literacy. So, and I actually learned a lot from that session on Saturday. Okay, so today we have a very distinguished guest with us, Mr. Gerald Kiara Muchiri. Yeah, so let me just read a little about Mr. Gerald.
Muchiri.
Okay, sorry. Muchiri,
No problem.
right? Okay.
Muchiri.
Muchiri. Oh, okay, please pardon my pronunciation. Okay. So Gerald is a trade policy researcher with deep expertise in African regional economic integration and digital trade infrastructure. It brings a unique perspective that sits at the intersection of trade policy and digital innovation. His work spans the architecture of Africa's most ambitious trade frameworks, including AFC, FTA, that AFTA, I don't know if that's correct, Mr. Gerard, COMESA, and ESC and SADC. I think he's going to tell us more about all of that when he, comes to tell us more about what he do. So he, with a particular focus on how digital tools can streamline cross-border commerce and address persistent bottleneck like rules of origin compliance. His research on economic integration in Africa has been published with the Young African Leaders Journal of Development. Yeah, that's why we are gathered here today, actually. So beyond Africa, Gerard's interests extend into Asian trade corridors, exploring how digital infrastructure can support compliance and transparency across frameworks like ASEAN and RCEP. It combines frontline policy experience with a technologist instinct for systems that made trade simpler, faster, and more transparent. So I want us to use our virtual clap to welcome Mr. Gerald. So Gerald, you have the floor, please. Okay, you are muted, please.
Okay. I had noted. I think you've already summarized everything about me in regards to my passion on trade. And sometimes I feel that the deeper down the rabbit hole I go, that I feel like I've almost covered every stone there is I've almost uncovered every stone there is to every in regards to finding out every insight I can, from ECOWAS to COMESA to SADC to ESC, but this field keeps surprising me. And I'd say that one of the biggest insights and challenges we have is that as AI, as AI has recently been developed, I'm talking about the likes of Anthropic and ChatGPT, we need to find ways in which we can unlock trade corridors to augment and build up supply chains that can actually drive African economic development. And I would say we're on the cusp of a very new age that seems quite promising, but we have to be able to seize the opportunity while we can. That's what I'd like to add. Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah, thank you too for being with us today. So today we are looking at Gerard's beautiful article that was like I read it and it was quite interesting. And I have a lot of questions for you today because there's a lot of things like going on in my mind. So today we are looking at an investigative analysis of how Africa economic integration by taking up agriculture as a means of economic livelihood. All right, the first question I have for you, Mr. Gerard, is like what inspired your focus on agriculture and on the role of youth, on African youth in driving economic integration? Like what inspired your article?
I would like to add that um, I I didn't even think about writing an article at the beginning. This was like 5 years ago because I kept wondering and I kept asking myself and conducting introspection as to what is the true root cause of unemployment on our continent. Is it structural? Is it the fact that maybe many young people don't have access to adequate education or economic opportunities, or is it both? And then when I started digging deep into the policy documentation, I started noticing that there exists a concurrent challenge and opportunity for young people to actually become self employed within the agricultural space, or as young people who venture into that space are commonly called nowadays, agripreneurship. And when I started looking at all the documentation that exists, it's like the powers that be, I don't want to start blasting the AU and other organizations, but it is what it is. Keep churning out policy documentation every few years in regards to the way they intend to give the youth a fighting chance to make something of themselves, even though there's very little to show for it on the ground. And if I recall statistics, there are between 400 million people aged between 15 and 35 on the African continent. So if you think about it, there's a demographic dividend to be had if our continent can actually try to actualize the potential in its young people. And as we've recently seen, nowadays they have a voice. They're quite apt and capable of being able to raise their grievances, as we've seen in the Gen Z uprisings all over the world. So I would say that my interest in economic integration was basically as a way in which to ask myself, how can young people on this continent make something useful of themselves and be able to literally put food on their table? Then I would say that should answer your question, Hannah. Thank you.
Okay, yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Yeah, I think we actually, I don't know, yeah, the youths really have to, take up that space and see it as something they can actually, benefit from. That leads me to my next question. So, despite being Africa's most vital asset, I mean agriculture, like Africa, that is what we are known for. We till the ground, like to, and we
Yes.
are really, really known for that. And we have excelled in agriculture. Yeah. So why do you think like African youth remain underrepresented in Africa and continental development initiative? Why?
There's the several structural factors, but I highlight this paradox in the abstract of my paper, especially when I touch on the fact that there's what is called the Mo Ibrahim Index of African Governance, and this is an index that touches on socioeconomic pillars that actually assess Africa's state of governance especially from a social, political, and economic perspective. And the thing is, more often than not, the issues that affect the representation of young people within this space are structural. Like I'll give you an example. It's not easy for young people to own land because they don't even have the capital to do so. And sometimes when they have a chance of owning it through systems of familial lineage, especially customary land systems, those systems tend to lock them out, especially in places where there's arable land, where norms of patriarchy sadly still exist. Um, if I continue, I'd also like to touch on the fact that if you look at it, there's also price instability of commodities. So let's say you actually do get a chance to buy some land, maybe the loan or with some capital that has been advanced to you from friends or family, or maybe through a job, and um, you start farming maize with the intention of exporting it overseas. The problem is trying to the problem you might realize challenges in getting an ROI, a return on your investment, especially when you have to deal with business licenses, marketing boards, who can market your crop, whether it's within the domestic territory of your country or overseas, taxes for that matter, and also the fact that you're grappling with things that are not even within your remote control, such as the fact that the prices of commodities overseas aren't things you can easily control, and they at times happen to be quite volatile. So there's also the fact that, as I've implicitly touched on it, it's brutal out here for young people, especially when it comes to getting access to capital. Because more often than not, especially in places like East Africa, um, it's it tends to be quite difficult to gain loans because banks and financial institutions tend to focus on giving loans to people who can show up collateral or security. It's like the way in which you'll notice that more often than not, it's easier for someone to get a job when they already have a job as compared to other people giving them a chance when they've never had the chance before. In a way, you could say it's like the system. I can see that you're nodding your head, Hannah. In a
Yeah,
way, you
yeah,
could see it
sure, sure. That's true.
like as if the system is rigged. Even though I don't really like using such a generic term, but it's not easy for young people to even get space, yeah, to get access within that space. And the problem is banks may also be hesitant to give loans to young people, especially if they feel that their activities may not be profitable enough. And it's been shown in regards to certain statistics with agribusiness in East Africa that the yields on those loans are usually slightly lower. And last but not least, the young people tend to view agriculture as dirty work, or maybe not really glamorous white collar work. And the thing about that is that these stereotypes have to change. Like, the thing about it is, if you don't have a source of income, you can't be picky as to where you should get that income, especially if you have a legal chance, or rather it's within your means, and you can actually try to create an idea to actualize it, and the idea is actually legal and ethical. So you can't be too picky, especially in the age we live in, as to how you earn an income per se, as compared to slightly previous years. And by the looks of things, with the AI, things may even get slightly harder. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that. I picked some points. You said like the system is not helping matters. Yeah, it's like making it difficult and making Like you are not even interested in it because of those stuff. So I just to ask you like this question. Okay, looking at a young girl like I am, pretty like this, how can you convince me to go into agriculture? Like, okay, because how can you sell that idea to me that okay? How can
If
you
I was
sell the idea to me?
okay, Hannah, if I was to try to convince you, first I
Okay,
would ask you to try to create a business plan in regards to
okay,
um, the niche areas within your country. I assume maybe you're Nigerian. I don't know your nationality, and I'd try to create a business plan that would target the niche areas within the
okay,
agricultural spaces within your country, and then also cross-reference that against the sources of capital you'd have access to, and how much
okay,
it would take, and how much it would take to get those ideas off the ground. Then
okay,
also there's the fact that you'd have to actually find a way in which to space out and time the implementation of the idea, because as with agriculture, um, when you decide to farm or plant seedlings, you don't immediately realize a harvest. You have to wait a bit before you can actually harvest, literally harvest the fruits of your labor and market them for sale. So I would have you try to create some sort of flowchart or organogram in which you can put all of this together, and try to find a way in which you don't have too many challenges that you face in regards to maybe competitors, maybe
okay.
very draconian governmental legislation or regulation for that matter, and so that you can give yourself a fighting chance to at least earn an income by initially breaking even before you can actually start to generate profit. Because to be honest, I'm not too well versed with how profitable agriculture is in Nigeria. I actually study trade legislation for a living. I look at it
Okay.
from a very legal angle, so to speak. So I would say you should maybe think about hashing out the ideas I've put forth, and also use AI, because you
Mm.
can't compete with it. You just you can't. Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, yeah. Well, I guess from your point that the agriculture we have now is not really the traditional agriculture of tilling the ground with my hand, taking the hoe by the hand. So you're even talking about me having an organogram. Oh, wow, that's quite interesting. Because so yeah, and I noticed or I have read on internet and on some articles that even now you can go into agriculture, let me say farming especially, without even having to till the ground and using soilless agriculture. And I think that is actually quite interesting. Yeah, so like you said, if for someone to go into that path, you should have you should have
Well,
finance to be able to you should be able to finance yourself and yeah, look at the legal aspects. If you have regulations around that can stop you or limit you. Yeah, I think that's actually cool.
I,
Yeah,
I
that's cool.
wanted to I wanted to add that the several types of farming I've seen that are quite lucrative, especially
Okay.
strawberry farming. But the
Mm.
problem is I've seen it implemented in a Western context. I've never seen it
An
implemented in
African.
an African context. Yes, like by
Okay.
what I let me expound. Let me expound. I'm not talking about the fact that strawberry farming is novel in Africa. That's not at all what I'm talking about. I mean, one time I once researched what is the most lucrative crop per square unit you can actually try to grow, and the prompt that came up was strawberries. But in
Mm.
America, they're not even farmed in the conventional way. They have a vertical grid by which they're able to implant them, to make sure that they can get the most crop per square unit out of it, and it's actually quite lucrative. I think some of those farmers even make millions. So, but I'm yet to see it happen, being implemented on African soil. So I'm not trying to tell you that you shouldn't dream, but also you have to also be cognizant of the challenges you face in regards to your own reality in your own space. Yeah.
All
If
right.
you decide
Thank
to
you
implement
for that.
such an
Yeah, thank you for that advice. If I decide to go into agriculture tomorrow, I have to, put that into consideration. So thank you. All right. Okay. So what policy intervention or like empowerment program do you believe are the most effective in overcoming youth participation? Like what initiative or policy, what policies do you think can increase youth participation in agriculture?
um I feel like I don't know how to say this. I feel like this question, or this is usually posed, not, I don't mean to you. Um, I've always seen this. It usually comes up every few years, maybe in policy documents such as policy briefs and other resources and other spaces where maybe thought leaders ask themselves, how can we make it more attractive for the youth to get into agriculture? And I feel like i- the focus needs to be more legislative. So there should be a focus on agricultural financing. It's one thing to tell the youth, yeah, we're going to actually help you undertake agricultural initiatives, but you actually need to create policy space and by affording them opportunities that are enshrined in legislation, where certain amounts of funding or percentages of national budgets should go towards such initiatives to help the youth make something of themselves. My paper actually references that Article 11A of the AFTA protocol should actually focus on this in regards to being able to de-risk. By this I mean, um, a lot of financial institutions view such initiatives with some skepticism, and you know how banking institutions are. They don't really like to mess with anything that messes with their bottom line, especially if it's too novel for them. That's what I mean by de-risking, and I feel that banking institutions should not, I'd say more banking institutions should give young people a chance to try to make something of themselves. Even though of late, I think maybe it's because of the AI surge and push, especially the development of ChatGPT and Anthropic, Claude by Anthropic. Banks are starting to develop more innovative digital products. So I would say there's that, and also the fact that, in regards to the question you just asked, there needs to be more incubation hubs for young people. I know that the time and again there have been attempts towards it, but we need to find a way, politely speaking, uh, to make agriculture sexy. And I don't mean it in
Mm.
the slightly aggressive language, but I mean that you have to find a way to appeal to young people. Others, they won't actually give you the time of day, especially when a lot of them have their attention captivated by other things on social media apps such as TikTok and whatnot. You have to find a way to make it more appealing to them to actually engage with that, especially if you can actually show them that they have a fighting chance towards making money from those ventures. So I would say that those are my thoughts on that matter.
Okay, so if I get your point, so you mean the policy that we should focus on is how to get funds, make funds available for youths that wants to venture into agriculture, but are, withdrawn or limited by lack of funding, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's actually a good one. That's a brilliant one because yeah, true. You need funding. You need funding. So if that funding is not there, then they'll be like, why do I even want to go into this? I have a friend that was talking to me about a fish farming. It was like a fish pond. So this guy
Yeah.
he had the land, he had these ponds, but at some point he gave up because he could not sustain like the because he has to feed those fish the fish to a particular point before he can take them to the market or sell them. But the feed, it like what he was feeding
Yes.
those fish was, oh my God, it was quite expensive. So he could not, he just like he just had to just sell the little ones he had, and it just went down just like that.
Yeah.
So I think they need
Yeah.
the policy, yeah, they need funding. At least, yeah, if you had seen the bank or anyone to like, give him some fund and assisted him at that point, probably he will still be in the business till now. So yes, I
Yeah.
get your point. Thank you for that.
Um.
Oh, okay.
Welcome. Welcome. Um. But I think I'm very. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe you can guide me otherwise. But I see this. I see the Toli Elumelu Foundation doing a lot of grants, supplying a lot of grants. I don't know if they've done anything to alleviate the situation in Nigeria on a monumental level. But by this I mean, it's one thing to do it, but I would also like to interact with someone who has first-hand knowledge of the things they
Uh-huh.
actually do on the ground. Yeah, so I don't know whether you could be in a space to comment towards that, but I like the fact that from my perspective and from what I can see, they're willing to take a chance to try to fund young people who have at least business vehicles or who are trying to start companies to try to make something of themselves. I think they give grants up to $5,000.
Wow.
I think
Okay.
other I think
Mhm.
other initiatives on the continent should try to to drive youth initiatives with such zeal. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Well, I have to go and check that out. I must confess. I have to check it out and know what they really do and how they help you because I'm interested. I'm interested in that area too. Okay, so based on your findings, so what impacts can increase youth participation in agriculture? Like agriculture, is it going to really have impact on poverty reduction, food security, and then unemployment in Africa?
Um, in regards to my findings, there've been new initiatives that have been heralded by the African Union. One is the CADP, and the thing about the CADP is that there was a target for for African leaders to create jobs for young people, at least 30% for 30% of African youth within the agricultural space, especially I think by 2025. And I'm not even sure if that target was attained and how that parameter would be measured. But I would like to add that if we could actually try to hit those targets, the the impact would be quite massive, especially if I look at how it would alleviate structural challenges on the continent, such as unemployment, which is a very big headache for the African political class, especially with the burgeoning and growing population of young people on their hands. Poverty, especially if you look at, like, some days I watch clips from other parts of the continent, and you can see while things are slowly starting to change, that sometimes it's like there's no glimmer of hope within certain spaces. And and also food security, especially in light of particular places on the African continent that have farming on an almost yearly basis. So I would say that if there was a tangible way to drive these policies on the ground in real time, and the thing about these initiatives is they require political goodwill. So if the powers that be are invested in them, then there isn't much that can be done. It's a sad reality. But I'd say if there was a chance, if um uh if the structural challenges that are facing young people can be dealt with such a way not to be eradicated, because that might be a bit over ambitious in the short run, but to ensure that those challenges can be mitigated in such a way that there could be an alignment of priority in terms of policies and initiatives and programs, then I think young people can actually drive massive impact in the agricultural space on the continent and drive economic development. That's what I believe.
Okay, let's hope for a better future then, right?
Mhm.
All right, all right, all right. Yeah. So, well, let's hope. Let's hope because we need there's a breakthrough, especially in African continents, to reduce this food insecurity, poverty, and the rest. We need a space to just rise up and take this
Mhm.
seriously to reduce all of this. Yeah, for us to have a better Africa, better, in fact, better world as in general. Okay, so I don't know, what advice would you give to policymakers? Just like this organization you mentioned now. So if you were to give them advice on how to harness agriculture for economic integration. So aside from, I know you've told us about the, providing fund. So aside the funding aspect, so what other advice would you give?
Um, I would say that there has to be a way to for the policymakers to ensure that even with budget deficits, programs have to be funded by budgets. It's an uncomfortable reality, and if there are budget
Mm,
deficits, then the initiatives that they're trying to target may not easily get off the ground. So if policymakers need to try to make sure that there's a way in which they can hedge their budgets in such a way that certain funds go to certain initiatives, even in cases of deficits. And that's not really easy because of the fact that the way money is spent in an economy usually has certain, is usually done in a way that is cognizant of certain priorities, especially if certain things are happening, such as the fact that a country may be going through an election year. So you can imagine that maybe certain money may be sent to particular regions to appease certain populations to ensure that in the short run an incumbent regime can retain power in the next cycle. So as I would say, there has to be a way to ensure that policymakers can hedge or ring fence certain sections of their budgets to actually fund these initiatives, because without them, these guys are the key cog in the wheel. And
mm,
because you can't always rely on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or the WHO to do these things, because those are private organizations and foundations that have their own priorities. So I would say that we're starting to see a lot of it with young organizations across the continent. There's farm crowdy, there's hydroponics, and there's one more I keep forgetting. I think it's called Agri House or something like that. Anyway, I like the models that these organizations are trying to implement. And I think that going forward, there needs to be more innovation or innovative thought leadership in regards to how to be able to help young people get these initiatives off the ground without the uh, while also be cognizant of the fact that sometimes there may not be enough goodwill. Because even if there's not enough political goodwill, then what? Because we can't give up. They have to, we have to become more creative at being creative in the way we solve these problems. That's what I'm saying in a roundabout manner. Thank you, Anna.
All right, thank you. We have to be creative in solving the problem at hand. Yeah, because it's actually a problem.
Mhm.
It's actually a problem because pulling youth now from whatever it is they are doing, that okay, come and focus on, join the
Yeah.
agricultural sector. It will take a lot of a lot of hard work. A lot of hard work. And we actually need youth in that space because the old men, sorry to say, the old men that are in that space, they are going very soon. So we we are the one that is supposed to, take up that space. And but well, I guess with
Yes.
these kind of conversations and these writings that we get, our mind is going to be, enlightened. Yeah, for us to do better because we can actually do better. We can actually do
Yes.
better. Yes. Okay. So last question I have here before I ask question and before Dennis or Mr. Florian will give us their thoughts. How can international organizations and governments okay, let's leave our government for now. We said the government should help us in the policy, they should add us to their budget, add youth, they should think about the younger generation when they are making their budgets. Yeah. So how can international organizations better support youth in agriculture to maximize their contribution to Africa's economic integration?
I'd say that there has to be ownership of policies in such a way that um, we have to put pressure on our politicians and our leaders to ensure that agriculture is one of the pivotal goals or plans of a particular administration going forward. Like I remember, I think the former Kenyan president had a plan where food security was actually on his to-do list in his last term. So that needs to be done on a continental wide level because of the fact that agriculture has the ability to ensure that it can pull young people out of poverty and create sustainable livelihood for them. It's not just important for you to earn a livelihood, it needs to be sustainable. So that's why you even note that conversations are starting to be had in regards to the type of jobs people have nowadays, as to whether they're high stress but well paying. Is there work life balance? So going back to the strand of thoughts, there has to be a way in which we can ensure that there's national ownership or collective ownership, especially that is driven by the highest levels of power within political structure, uh, not just at the nation state level, but also at the continental level as well, to ensure that that priority and priority is given to policies and programs that can drive agriculture and that can include young people when decisions are being made at the table in regards to giving them a fighting space and a fighting chance. I think it was Madagascar was it Madagascar or Burkina Faso where there were young people actually are able to have forums with the head of state and are able to actually um, bring up their hopes and dreams and opinions as to how their nation should be governed, if I remember. And I also remember how hopeful some of those documents I used to peruse before I wrote my first paper, even though I had so much to learn about writing an academic paper. Pardon my ramblings. And I'm always glad and I'm always grateful to the people at Yaljord and especially Prince Ifo for giving young people a platform to express themselves, and also Dr. Zombo Muzata. I remember reading the Ouagadougou Youth Protocol in Burkina Faso. It's one of the most powerful it's one of the most powerful youth documents on African policy, and very few people know it exists. It's almost 20 years old, and I remember thinking how inclusive this document is. But when I look at contemporary documents on websites such as the AU, even if they try to make sure that those papers they publish and stuff are relevant towards modern times, especially in regards to youth, they don't, there's no linkage between then and now. So I sometimes feel like it's it's as if we just have to keep posturing or window dressing stuff in a way that's not substantially changing the problem. So, because for you to actually know where you're going, you have to acknowledge where you're coming from, even if you don't linger on it.
Mhm.
So, that's what I'd say. And also, we need to, as you know, most recently there's been the promulgation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area in Ghana that happened in Kigali in May 2018. And there have been several set of documents and annexes that have been developed to substantially enhance this treaty. And the Africa Protocol on Women and Trade that came out quite recently is quite a very telling document, and there needs to be more focus on this document towards helping young people be able to drive agriculture on the continent on commercial scale. And I would say that one of the issues that needs to be tackled to facilitate the movement of goods, especially agricultural goods across borders, that affects the viability and speed of products along the supply chain is the lack of visa-free movement that can enable the free flow of labor, capital, people, services, and goods across one border to another in seamless fashion to happen quite quickly, because economic growth needs to be done in speedy and timeous fashion. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Gerard. Like,
Anytime.
I've learned a lot. I'm taking a lot. I'm taking a lot away. I'm very sure that most of our audience too, they are taking so many. Like, you are dropping knowledge that we should keep and even use right now. Oh, we shouldn't wait.
Uh,
Yes. Yes. We shouldn't wait. All right. Mr. Florine, he dropped his contribution on the chat box. So he said, I have noticed many national investment policies highlight agriculture as a priority sector, yet they often fail to address land access and incentives for youth. Very true. Countries should learn from Tanzania's BBT, Build a Better Tomorrow. Okay, empowering youth with land, finance, and training to make agriculture a path to prosperity. Mr. Floren, you're on point. Thank you so much for that contribution. Because yes, without the land, without the finance, even without the training, just for instance,
I
now I have the
acknowledge that as
money.
well.
Yeah, I have the money. I have the land. Let's say I inherited, a few acres of land from my father. And now I have the money. I've gone to the bank. Okay, bank, I need money to go into strawberry. Because you said it's very lucrative. So, okay, I want to go into it and I don't even have the knowledge. I cannot create a good plan of how to carry out my actions. Like you said, we should even have an organogram. I don't even know what that is. So tell me, is that not going to be like a waste on the part of the bank that is giving me the money? And even the government that is adding me to their policies, it's going to be a waste. So I think we need the training. Yeah, we need the training, we need the land, and we need it. Thank you.
I
Okay,
also
please.
forgot to add that you should also undertake a feasibility study
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
you're able to have a good estimate as to whether or not you can recoup your investment, especially
Mhm.
that you need to be able to do so when you're getting funds from other people or other institutions, because more often than not loans come with terms and conditions.
Yeah. That's true. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. Do we have any other contribution from anybody or question? Yeah, it can be a question, it can be a contribution. Do we have any other? Okay, we have this pretty sister raising up her hand. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Thank you so much, our lovely host
So,
and Mr. Gerald. Good evening. I hope you're having a nice day. Thank you for your insight. It's been really wonderful hearing you speak about this, and I've also learned a lot. I cannot keep saying I've also learned a lot. And
Yes.
I just wanted to ask. We've been talking about funding, and I agree that it is very important. But in a country like Nigeria, I believe uh, infrastructure is way more important than this funding thing, because we need infrastructures like storage and power. Power is a big problem in Nigeria. So
I know
Very.
I am.
as soon as you're planning any business, you need to, I mean, your main capital, most of your capital is definitely going into power. Like, how are you going to power this business? You can rely on electricity in Nigeria. So transport is also an issue, and irrigation can be limiting. So I think my question is, can financial support alone make agriculture viable for young people? Or do you think we need a broader ecosystem to truly make youth-led farming sustainable?
I'd say it's the latter. We need a broader ecosystem in regards to willing stakeholders who are able to come together to make the challenges that are affecting young people from desisting or not being interested in getting towards agriculture, in not being interested in undertaking agriculture, to find a way to mitigate those challenges. Because I'll be frank with you, government goodwill won't solve every problem, especially in the short run. So the problem is that it involves taking a hard look at priorities by the exchequer, that is the treasury of a nation's government, in regards to which projects it's willing to fund. And of course, there's always I have to call a spade a spade. There are always political interests that actually affect how
Sure.
money is directed at times, especially in regards to choosing to fund one project at the expense of another. So the problem is how can we develop viability and continuity of development plans and projects even if administrations change? Because when one administration leaves office, another may come and undo and undo what the previous one had set up, had attempted to accomplish. So I think these are the harder questions that need to be asked, not just on a nationwide level, but on a continental level, because we need to interrogate the very quality of the democracies we have. Because we have to be able to ask ourselves, are these freedoms that we possess giving us tangible benefits that we can see? And if so, what can we do to enhance the quality of those freedoms so that we can be able to live lives worth meaning if we are able to have sustainable livelihoods for ourselves? That's what I'll say.
Thank you so much. I hope that answers your question, Miss Lovett. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Dennis, do you have anything to say to us? Okay, I don't think he's here. Okay, okay.
Sorry. I am there. I don't know. The mic I'm using is very low, so I try to. Let's see. Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I think we in position to sorry. So I mean we're having these conversations to be able to better first thing to be able to get the mind of the other clearly on their contribution to the Yaljodi, and also because this Yaljodi is a policy document for the continent, and not just a document, but to be able to guide our African governments on better ways to do things within the continent, on better ways to solve the problems that we have within the continent from African minds themselves. So that's basically what we've been working on, and I'm glad when the call was made, Gerald Kiara was able to respond to the call and be able to come up with this very, I would say, exhilarating paper, because first the agriculture, I mean, agriculture hasn't really gotten a lot of interest to so many young people because of the rise of AI and also so many things.
Yeah.
But I think again we're seeing quite a small number of young people venturing into it. There's a study which was made by the Aga Khan East Africa University in 2024 there about. I was saying actually less than 11% of young Africans or young people are likely to venture to agriculture. Who, and that is from the graduates. So you can imagine, so you can imagine that kind of percentage, and the kind of the high numbers that we are releasing from universities. We only having less than 11% venturing into agriculture. So that means in close to 10, 20 years to come, when we have our fathers and our existing grandparents living who are somehow into agriculture and not there in 30, 50 years, then it means we'll have to stretch quite a bit, because now if we're having very low numbers turning to agriculture in as much as they are educated, that means we have a very huge problem. We have a very huge problem that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. So I think this is one way we can be able to keep on um, letting young people know the importance of agriculture. Because like then Florian shared in a text earlier, we're saying many governments usually say agriculture is the backbone of their economy. Agriculture is the backbone of their country, whatever. But what exactly are they doing with our agriculture? Because I think the one that you are referring to, Gerald, was Burkina Faso, where usually the president usually meet with young people and just discuss matters on what they're doing. And they're able to be convinced if it's going to agriculture, they're doing so. Sometime last year, I don't know if you observed, they were actually the largest producers of tomatoes last year. That is Burkina Faso, by just venturing into that machinery and all these things. So I think we as young people, as much as that's not my part in university, but I think from the background, I've also been able to get back and understand what else can we do, maybe with the small lands that we have within our homes, within our farm, within our families, and be able to at least utilize them. That's the that's the only way we can be able to keep on uh, lifting this conversation from just conversation and also making them work around other. I think we're also seeing some other young Africans. I think mostly, I think Zambia is doing so. I've seen there's a farmer, there's a young farmer in Tanzania in Ghana, called the Kenyan farmer. Quite a number of them doing the influence to be able to get the young people to get to farming. But also on our end, that's simply what we keep on doing uh, from researchers like Gerald and from Yalzondi, what we're doing by coming to these spaces to create such awareness is very key, but also to keep silent. After this, we need to be able to meet, when we meet in our gathering, we need to educate the young people on the importance of agriculture. Happy to say that Anna is also convinced that agriculture is not a dirty business. So we ought to keep on going this way. And just to say thank you so much, Bwana for is that investigative paper that you put all together. I love the idea that you've been able to um, look into cross-country uh, works that are going on in Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. The hydroponic things, what Nigerians are doing. I don't know if it's crowd farming or how they do it, but I would like to really understand that concept better to be able to see how can these groups be able to do much, but also what you might what I think we keep on, and the recommendations that you have done are really are keen to the matters at the table on that level is, I think, is really key. And I'm glad that you have also highlighted that in people were writing the recommendations on what has to be done, build access to the land, how can we be able to improve the infrastructure within it, and what's our mandate uh, within the younger leaders across the country to be able to pushing all this as a researcher, uh, as educationists, as all these people. Let's ensure that as we innovate more on AI and as many young people get more education, education is not just a paper. Let's keep on doing this. And thank you so much for the time that you dedicated to put that paper all together. And also,
I'm grateful, Dennis, and I would also like to say I'm writing a second paper on digital economic integration. But so
that's
it's how we can use AI, we can monetize technology.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
Well,
that's
let's
where
look
my
forward
interest is.
to that. Okay, we'll be looking forward to read that. Obviously, also looking forward to having it on the Algeod maybe for them seats now. So thank you so much on that, and also for creating
I
this
th-
time. This evening.
Anytime. I thank you and Hannah. I thank you and Hannah.
Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Anna, as well. Maybe maybe you'll tell us if Egyptians are using
She,
the
she, she, she,
the
she,
sand
Okay.
to do the farming, or what are they doing with the river Nile? So uh, I think the things we need to keep on doing this. So thank you so much, and have a lovely evening, a lovely night. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.